Waitress got fired for being late. Next day she was on Oprah. The bell over the diner door rang like a tiny alarm, and I ran in with my apron still in my hand, breathing hard, hair damp from the fog, shoes squeaking on the black and white floor. Morning light pushed through the big front window and made the chrome shine. Coffee hissed. Plates clattered. Forks chimed. My name is Amara Diaz, and I had never been late before. Not once, but today the clock over the pie case said 6:12 a.m., and I was 12 minutes late for the breakfast rush. The sign outside said Halbert's Diner. Hot food, warm people, but Mr. Halbert's face was not warm at all. He stood by the register with his arms crossed, jaw tight, and I knew before he spoke that the day would not be kind. I held my breath because there was so much to hold. 2 jobs, a stack of bills, and my little brother Noah, still sleeping at home with his backpack for school by the door. I wanted to say the title out loud like a dare to myself, like a promise to my own heart. Waitress got fired for being late. Next day she was on Oprah. It sounded like a movie. It did not sound like my life. But life can turn fast, like a coin in the air, and you do not know which side will land facing you. "Hand me your apron, Amara," Mr. Halbert said. He did not say good morning. "We open at 6. You are here after 6. I can't run a circus," I tried to explain. The bus from my night shift at the laundry had broken down. I had to walk the last mile. I had to help Noah find his inhaler because the damp air makes his chest tight. My voice shook, not because I wanted pity, but because everything inside me felt like a glass about to crack. The cooks looked away. The regulars kept eating. The hiss of the coffee maker was loud. "Please," I said. "Give me one warning. I'll stay late tonight. I'll do the prep. He raised his hand and cut the words from the air. "You're a good kid," he said, "but a business is a business." He took the apron from my fingers. It felt like he was taking my breath, too. I turned and walked out into the cold morning with my hands empty and my cheeks hot. The town street was quiet except for the crows on the wires and the faraway sound of the school bus. I stood under the diner sign and told myself I would not cry here. Not in public, not where the news would travel faster than the wind. I thought of the hint line that would later appear under a video, the one that said the boss did not care about excuses and fired the girl on the spot. And I thought, that line is true, and it hurts. I walked home with the sun low and orange, and I counted the steps because counting is a way to keep worry from swallowing you. At our little apartment, the paint on the railing flaked like dry leaves. I turned the key and called, "Noah!" He sat at the table with his math homework, lips pressed tight, inhaler near his hand like a small gray whistle. He looked up and saw my face and knew. He is only 12, but he is old in the way some children are old when life tugs them forward before they are ready. "It's okay," he said fast, like he wanted to stitch the hole with words. "I can pack my lunch from the pantry. We have peanut butter." I smiled so he would not see my fear, and I made him oatmeal and sliced an apple, and I told him I would find something by noon. After he left for school, I sat in the quiet and let the tears come. Not loud, just steady like rain on a window. I opened my second-hand phone and saw a number I did not know, a Chicago area code, a voicemail bubble blinking like a tiny star. I pressed play, expecting a bill collector. The voice was calm and warm. "Hi, Amara, this is Tess from Harpo Studios. Someone sent us a story about you. Is there a time we can talk today? It's about tomorrow's show." I stared at the screen and the room seemed to tilt. I replayed the message 3 times because the mind needs proof when joy tries the door. The call was real. Tess was kind. She asked me to tell her about the night 2 weeks ago, the night I did not talk about, the night that still glowed inside me like an ember. I told her how I was walking home after the laundry shift, past the all-night grocery store, when I saw a woman at the register counting coins with shaking hands. There was a toddler in a stroller with a blanket wrapped too thin, and the child was breathing fast, and there were baby food jars and a half-gallon of milk and a small bottle of children's cough syrup on the belt. The clerk cleared his throat and said the total again, and the woman counted again, and the number did not change, and her eyes were glassy with that special kind of shame that should not exist on earth. I felt something move in me, a steady quiet, and I stepped forward and said, "Put it all on my card." The woman tried to refuse, but I pressed her hand and said, "Please, I want to." The clerk bagged the groceries. I paid. I walked them to the door. The woman hugged me and cried like a soft rain. I never asked her name because it felt like the moment belonged to her, not to me. I went home and said nothing to anyone, not even Noah, because it was a private kindness, like a prayer you whisper and then let go. But someone had seen. Maybe the clerk had told the manager. Maybe the security camera had given the story eyes. Maybe the woman had found a way to send the memory into the world. However it traveled, it had reached Tess. It had reached Oprah. Tess told me the show for tomorrow was about invisible helpers, about small acts that change big things. She said they wanted me to come to Chicago and tell my story. She said there would be surprises I should not ask about. My hands shook. My first thought was Noah. Who would get him to school? Who would make sure he took his inhaler? Tess said they would arrange everything. They would send a car this afternoon. They would book a hotel. They would send a local sitter who was a nurse to stay with Noah overnight and take him to school in the morning. I felt a weight lift from my ribs. Then I felt fear again, because when life is hard, even good news feels like a trick. "Is this real?" I asked. Tess laughed a kind laugh. "Yes, honey," she said. "It's real. We do this every day." I wrote down instructions with a careful pen. I called our neighbor, Mrs. Vega, and told her the plan. She clapped and said she would come sit with Noah until the nurse arrived. I packed a small bag, the clean blouse I saved for church, the black flats, the comb that does not pull too hard. I looked in the mirror and told myself, simple and slow, "You are not just a girl who got fired. You are a girl who keeps choosing kindness." By 3 in the afternoon, the car was at the curb, big and quiet, with a driver who knew my name and treated our building like a palace. Noah ran down the stairs and hugged me around the waist, face pressed to my coat. "Bring me back a story," he said, his voice smiling. "Bring me back the part where you win." I kissed the top of his head and told him to listen to Mrs. Vega and take his homework seriously and drink water when the air felt thick. The driver opened the door and said, "O'Hare," like it was a normal thing to say, and for some reason that made me laugh. At the airport, everything was bright and busy, and I followed the signs like they were stepping stones across a river. The studio had sent me an electronic ticket, and the machine beeped and let me through, and the world became carpets and announcements and the smell of cinnamon pretzels. On the plane, I sat by the window and watched the town get small, the streets like lines on a map, the diner like a crumb on a plate. I thought of Mr. Halbert's face. I thought of the bell over the door and the hiss of coffee and the words, "A business is a business." Maybe he was right in his way. But a life is not just a business. A life is a bridge you build with the wood you have, and you hope it holds the weight of the people you love. Chicago was cold and silver, the buildings holding up the sky. A producer met me at the gate with a sign that said, "Amera," like I was important, like I belonged. The hotel room was soft and quiet, and the bed looked like a cloud, and I put my bag on the chair and sat on the edge and did not move for a full minute because I wanted to feel the moment without rushing it. That night, Tess called to check on me and walked me through tomorrow. "We'll do a quick prep in the morning," she said. "We'll brush your hair. We'll put a little light on your face. Nothing fancy, just you." I slept with the city hum in the walls and a promise in my chest. In the morning, a car took me to the studio, and the hallway smelled like coffee and flowers, and people moved fast but smiled when they saw me. They put a small microphone on my collar and told me not to touch it. They said, "When you hear your name, walk toward the light." My hands were cold. My mouth was dry. My heart was steady in a new way, like it had decided to be brave before my brain could argue. The stage was warm and round, and the lights felt like sunshine. The audience was a soft sea of faces, and I could hear them breathe, and the air carried a slow excitement like before a storm. Then she was there. Oprah. She walked out from the side, and the room rose like a wave, and I rose with it because respect lifts you even when you are shy. She looked at me the way a kind aunt looks when she already knows your story and likes it. Today, she said, voice low and bright. "We are talking about people who do big things by doing small things at the right time. We have with us a young woman from a little town who worked 2 jobs, who takes care of her little brother, and who did something beautiful at a grocery store after midnight. Please welcome Amara Diaz." My name filled the room like a song. I walked toward the light. I sat on the couch. I kept my hands still so I would not touch the microphone. Oprah asked me to tell the story. I told it, simple, just as it happened. The coins on the counter, the child's quick breathing, the milk, the jars, the cough syrup, the hug. I told her about getting fired the very next morning. The audience gasped softly like one person. Oprah shook her head slowly. "Life will test your kindness," she said. "And then sometimes it rewards it in ways you could not plan." Then came the first surprise. Oprah said, "We have someone who wants to meet you." A door opened. The woman from the grocery store walked out holding her toddler, now wearing a thick sweater and new shoes with white laces. Her eyes were full. She sat next to me and took my hand in both of hers. "My name is Janelle," she said. "That night I had nowhere to go. My baby had a fever. I was scared. You showed up like a lighthouse. You paid. You walked me to the door. You made me feel seen. I found your name from the clerk. I wrote a letter. I prayed it would find you. And it did. I cried then, not quiet, but the good kind of crying that loosens pain. The audience clapped in a way that felt like a hug. Oprah wiped her own eyes and laughed at herself and said, "We're not done." The second surprise was a little film on the screen above us. It showed our town, the diner, the school, the bus stop. It showed me at night picking up trash on the block, leaving a brown paper bag of groceries at Mrs. Green's door when her hip was bad, writing a note for the janitor at the school that said, "Thank you for making the floors shine." I had not known anyone was watching. The film ended with Noah at our table, cheeks bright, saying, "My sister is my hero." I put my hand over my mouth and laughed and cried at the same time. Because love will do that to you. Then came the third surprise, the big one, the one that would change the shape of our days. Oprah said, "Amara, we know you were let go yesterday. We know you carry a lot, and still you give. A foundation that believes in small acts making big change would like to give you $50,000 to start something in your town. A community pantry, a hot breakfast club, a fund for kids' inhalers and bus passes. You pick, you lead. We'll help." The room went bright and blurry. My mind tried to count all the ways this could heal 100 small hurts, and it could not count fast enough. I heard the audience, but it was far away. I heard Oprah say, "We'll also cover a year of rent for you and Noah. And we found a mentor who runs a community kitchen who will meet you after the show." The ground under me felt steady for the first time in months. I thought of the title again, and I smiled inside, because the title had turned true in the biggest way. Waitress got fired for being late. Next day, she was on Oprah. Only now, the story inside the title had grown even bigger than the words. I flew home that night with a folder full of papers and a head full of plans. At the airport, I called Noah, and he screamed into the phone in the happy way, and Mrs. Vega laughed, and I could hear our kitchen in the background, the kettle whistling and the window rattling a little in the wind. When I reached our building, neighbors were on the stairs with smiles and questions. Someone had already shared a clip online. The town felt smaller and kinder, like a room where the lights had been turned up. The next morning, I walked past the diner on my way to meet the school principal about a breakfast program. Mr. Halbert was sweeping the front step. He looked up and froze the way you freeze when the past walks by wearing new shoes. He set the broom aside. "Amara," he said. His voice was different, lower, almost careful. "I saw you on TV." I nodded. "I saw me there too," I said, and it made him smile for a second without meaning to. He cleared his throat. "I owe you an apology," he said. "I was hard because the world has been hard on me, and that is not an excuse. If you ever want your job back, you have it." I looked through the window at the chrome and the coffee and the old clock over the pie case. The place where I had learned to balance 6 plates at once had taught me to balance other things too, like grace and pride. "Thank you," I said, and I meant it because apologies are labor. But I have a different job now. We called the new work the Sunday table, because on Sunday we cooked extra and invited whoever needed a warm plate. The money seated a small pantry behind the church, a shelf with rice and beans and baby formula and socks. We set up a breakfast cart at the school with oatmeal and fruit, and kids took bowls with the careful joy of people who will not drop what they have been given. We made a fund with the clinic for inhalers and antibiotics, small co-pays that can feel like mountains when your pockets are thin. Noah became the chief list maker and the chief label writer, and his handwriting grew neat with pride. Janelle came on Saturdays to help arrange the shelves, and her toddler learned to say my name like a song. The clerk from the grocery store came to volunteer. The janitor came and told me the floors only shine because he has time to make them shine. And I told him time is the gold of the poor, and we both laughed. The town noticed. People who had extra brought extra. People who had little brought time or smiles or stories. The work did not solve every problem, but it softened the sharp edges, and sometimes that is the work that saves a day before it can save a life. There were more surprises in the weeks that came. A woman from a nearby city who ran a kitchen for hospital night shift nurses came to show me how to plan menus that use everything and waste nothing. A bus company offered free rides on cold mornings to the school for kids who lived too far to walk. A music teacher started a play and eat hour before class because he said a full stomach and a song can fix more than people think. One afternoon, a letter came with a neat return address. It was from Mr. Halbert. Inside was a check for $500 and a note that said, "For the breakfast cart." Also, I am switching the diner sign to read, "Hot food, warm people. For real." I taped the note to our fridge. I kept the check for a day on the table because I wanted to look at it and remember that people can change, that shame can turn into action if you give it a gentle push. We did not talk about the morning I was fired anymore. We talked about the mornings that came after. The mornings that began with steam from oatmeal and laughter at the cart and the sight of small hands taking apples and bananas and saying thank you with their eyes. Sometimes, late at night when the street was quiet and Noah was asleep and the pantry shelves were full for the next day, I would stand at the window and think about the shape of the story. There was the hard beginning with the bell over the door and the cold words and the burn of tears. There was the middle with the airport and the lights and the voice that felt like a hand on my shoulder saying, "We see you." There was the ending that was not an ending at all, just another beginning. Because the work of feeding and helping and seeing is a loop that keeps turning as long as people keep walking into it with open hands. I would whisper the title again, not like a boast, but like a blessing I was still learning how to carry. Waitress got fired for being late. Next day, she was on Oprah. And then I would add my own line, the one that does not fit on a thumbnail but fits in a life. Kindness is not a job you lose. It is a door you open. And if you keep it open, the whole town walks through the lesson. If I had to say it plain so a fifth grader could hear it and tell it to a friend, is this: bad things happen and good things can happen too. People can be unfair and people can be wonderful. You can be pushed down and you can stand up. One small kind act can travel farther than you ever will, and it can come back to you carrying gifts you never expected. I used to think a job was the same as a life, and when I lost the job, I felt like I had lost the life. Now I know the job was only one tool, and life is the work of loving and helping and being brave when fear is loud. I still walk past the diner sometimes on my way to the school, and I still hear the bell over the door, and now it sounds like a different kind of alarm, the kind that tells you to wake up and look around because something good is happening somewhere, and maybe you can be part of it. When the cameras turned off that day on the stage and the lights cooled and Oprah hugged me and whispered, "Keep going," I said I would, and I am, and I will, because in the end, the title is not just a headline. Waitress got fired for being late. Next day, she was on Oprah is a map that points from hurt to hope, from small to strong, from one person's kindness to a room full of people clapping because they see a little more clearly how big a small thing can be.